Hey everyone, welcome to Kempner Sports. My name is Rev Trev, and today I have got a massive battle. It's myself, Rev Trev, the Packers fan, versus NFL outdated, the diehard Bears fan. Welcome, Andy, to the channel. Thanks for being on.
Well, thanks for having me. Bear down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so here's the thing: like we are representing our team. We love our team. We also respect. That's one thing that you and I have done. We actually respect other people and their teams, and just like appreciate that someone else is a fan, right? And there's a lot of hate that goes on. I just want to give you a shout out because I just really appreciated connecting with you. And I feel like you have a really good take on a lot of things that are going on in Bear Country, but not only that, in the NFC North. And so, yeah, just want to give you a moment to promo what you do. And I love your content. So
Appreciate it. Yeah, we do the Freezing Four NFC North podcast every Wednesday, usually 8:30 CST, and really got into it to try to learn more about other teams and interviewing other podcasters. And I think that's the important thing. I mean, we all love football, right? And we're all passionate about our fan base, our team. But I think when you're an honest fan, it's important to kind of like and I was going to talk about this. I didn't talk about it on our pod, but the two different hats, right? You have your fan hat, and I feel like we have your football hat because sometimes when you're a fan hat on, like I'm going to have my fan hat on this weekend. Yes, I want the Bears to beat the crap out of Aaron Rodgers and win this game. My fan hat. My football hat says, maybe it's all right if the Bears lose. Everything that's going on, and we'll kind of get into that. But with where the Bears are at and draft pick and all that, I understand that they may lose, and just what's going on with the Packers now too. They've got a little bit more hope than they've had. So
yeah, exactly. And that's what I think I appreciate about you is that you can wear the different hats. Where I find there's a lot of fans that are just so diehard and they're arrogant and rude and they think by being mean and I have no problem with a little bit of trash talk here and there.
yeah,
You and I are like, hey, let's have a conversation. You'll have a lot of good points, although we might not agree. And I see you on your podcast. You don't get pushed over, but you're like, no, I want to hear your side. And I appreciate that about you. So thanks so much for having me on your podcast. And I'm just thrilled to have you on mine. Okay, let's get into the story time. Okay. So how did you become a fan of the Bears? I want to know your story.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Iowa, and obviously we don't have any professional sports teams, and so we're close enough to Chicago. Had a chance to get to Wrigley Field and see the Cubs with my dad, so became Cubs fan, and we'd also always watch the Bears on TV. And as a kid, I actually had and I still have a copy of it somewhere, the VHS of the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Nice.
So I don't really, I remember that season a little bit as a kid. I was still pretty young, but so that I remember that. But then, a lot of mediocre football through the 90s, but it was the team that we followed, and still had to run with the Chicago teams. I never went. I actually had some friends that went with either the other way. They went the Vikings, or they went Chiefs even. But being in Iowa, that's we're close enough to Chicago, so we're all about Chicago sports, win or lose, yeah.
So who's your favorite Bear of all time? Is it Walter?
It has to be Walter, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think about that. I mean, he's actually the only jersey I have right now, but I didn't get a chance to really watch him as much as I and really appreciate him, because I was younger. But he just, I mean, who he was, and just the kind of runner he was, sweetness. I mean, there's just nothing, that he couldn't do on the football field, and so definitely him. And when you look at some of these other players now, You got to love the linebackers as well. But Buckus, and I mean, that's a huge line of linebackers for the Bears, and Urlacher, and I'm really excited, for Devin Hester now too. That's actually going to be my next. And I didn't think about when he was on the team too. It was. I mean, yeah, he was amazing, but it was such a interesting time. Because the Bears defense was amazing at that time. But it was him too. And they were trying to force him into being a wide receiver. And so it was just a really awkward thing now to think back that he's probably going to be going into the Hall of Fame this next year. And just to, think that he made that on being a returner alone.
Yeah.
I mean, and just one of the best of all time. And so that's kind of cool to look back at that. And so, it has to be Walter Payton. I mean, there's a few others that and definitely enjoyed, but it's got to be Walter.
Yeah. Walter was just unbelievable. I love watching him. I always got afraid of facing Urlacher and some of those Bears guys. And I saw the 85 Bears win the Super Bowl. It was just not, I wasn't there live, but I was watching that. And those are pretty cool days.
One player I think that doesn't get talked about enough, and I liked him as a kid too, that I always forget to mention, is William Refrigerator Perry.
Oh, yeah. Who didn't like that guy?
Right. And the cool thing was too, I was a huge G.I. Joe fan, as a kid too. And to have him, as a G.I. Joe figure too, it was like, that was just the ultimate marketing right there. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay. So you live in Wisconsin. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
And so how do Packers fans treat you as a Bears diehard? Because I'm in the West Coast of Canada, and you wouldn't believe how many times I get razzed for wearing my Packers gear. Now, granted, I'm in I would be considered in Seahawk country, so I get most of that. But I was in Lids, and I'm checking out, and I have my Packers stuff on, of course, and a Bears fan's trash talking me, and I'm like, I looked at him, I was like, I did a double check, are you talking to me right now? And it's like, have you watched football? You know what I mean? So when I was thinking about that, I was like, and I can hold my own, right? I know you can too. But tell me about, what is it like to live in Wisconsin, and how do Packers fans treat you?
Well, it's fun. Actually, back up a little bit. So I actually spent 10 years in Minnesota, right? So I've been in other enemy territory, and that was, going to some of those games, and it was interesting. I actually went to Brett Favre's last game as well. But it was a little bit easier in Minnesota because the Vikings haven't won anything, right? And so you get to, and at that point in my fandom, I wasn't really, I didn't like the Packers, right? But moved to Wisconsin, and my first few years in Wisconsin, I mean, that was the NFC Championship loss. The 2010, right? The Caleb Haney year, and then hearing the song, the Bears still suck, over and over again, and that just kind of got my craw. I'm like, oh man, I hate these Packers, and and it's funny because I worked at a church, we talked about that, and so I had a lot of Packer friends, and but when it was Packers Bears week, I was talking crap and all of that, and it hasn't really gone very far, with all the winning the Packers have done, but it's lately it's been interesting to watch the stuff with the Aaron Rodgers drama and all of that. And it's weird because I've never lived in Illinois, Chicago, but living here in Wisconsin, even on a Sunday morning at church, everybody is wearing all their Packer gear. And it's a pretty laid back place and everything, where, people don't really get dressed up, we wear jeans and stuff like that. And so I'm wearing my Bears jerseys and all of that. And people, there's actually another Bear fan in there in my church as well. And everyone just kind of pretty laid back, and they kind of give me a double take, but no one really says anything. And
so do you only wear it on Sundays where you play each other, or do you wear your Bears jersey most weeks?
Most weeks, yep. Bears jersey, sweatshirt, yep, most weeks. And I'm not the only one either. Yeah, so one of my good friends at church, does as well.
like, does the pastor ever make a comment about, we've got some sinners here that need to be saved, or
Well,
you
that's
know?
funny you say that because actually, he's originally from the Racine area, I believe, and spent some time in Illinois. So he's actually a Bears fan. So yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
You need a new pastor. No, I'm joking.
yeah, right, right.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool, man. I like that story. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing it. I mean, I would have never have guessed that that would happen. So people have been pretty cool with you. I mean, once you start having conversation, they understand you can hold your own, and you're very respectful, right? You're not a jerk. So
I think that's the biggest thing because in actually living near Milwaukee as well, I'll go to the Brewers Cubs games, and a lot of times I'll hear, "Oh, Cubs fans are horrible; they're the worst," and I think that that is warranted. A lot of Cubs fans, a lot of a lot of Illinois fans. When you live in Chicago, it's a whole different thing. I think sometimes you live in those bigger cities, you kind of have a little bit more edge to you. And I'm from Iowa, so I'm not kind of used to that. So I'm a little bit more laid back. I think yeah, I'll talk trash, but I think you need to be able to take it too. And whether it's on Twitter or whatever. I mean, I've never. It's been a while, I guess, since I've lived in the same area that my team is. Everyone else is cheering. So I kind of I enjoy that. I enjoy giving people a hard time and getting it back, but you know, um, always in a good natured way, right? I mean,
yeah,
as soon as someone says your team stinks, okay, tell me why, or, my team's going to win. Okay, well, tell me why. I mean, anybody can say that, any fan can say that. And everybody has the right to say it as a fan. But I think it's important to say, okay, well, why? And that's why I always like to learn about everything, including football. And, if you're going to tell me, and we'll probably talk about this, you're going to tell me my quarterback stinks, tell me why, you know?
right. Yeah, yeah, and that's how you deflate it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, people can be so mean and rude and just so just ignorant, and that's the challenge. So okay, well let's talk about some of that because I surprised a lot of Packers fans because I like the pick of Justin Fields that the Bears traded down for. I thought that Justin Fields should have got picked number two over Zach Wilson. I was saying that people thought I was crazy, but hindsight 2020, maybe he could have even went number one because Trevor Lawrence was it Lawrence that year? Yeah, I think it was, right.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I want to ask you the question: is the hype real on Justin Fields? I know he's developing, but there's a lot of hype now. This year he's kind of turned around. So tell me what you think about Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, when the Fields pick happened, I was kind of at a point. I'm like, we're kind of in a quarterback wasteland, and I just didn't think it was going to happen. They traded him. I said, oh wow, I think we got a quarterback. And I'm an Iowa Hawkeye, so I've seen Justin Fields. I had a chance to see him versus Clemson in the playoffs,
Wow.
that year, and obviously not live, but you watch him, and I just I'm just can't stand Ohio State, right? And we've got all this negative, connotations about what Ohio State quarterbacks can do or can't do in the NFL, right? But I watched him and I watched him get injured and with his ribs and everything, and I watched him fight through it, right? And
Hmm.
as a Bears fan, it's just been a wasteland for quarterbacks. I mean, we've been looking for someone, and Jay Cutler has probably been the best Bears quarterback in my lifetime, and it was
Right.
so much hope when they had that trade, and then you know so close to get an NFC Championship game against the Packers. You lose, and then okay, well we've got NFC Championship game, and then he gets injured, and he was tough. That was a real chance, right? So that you have a quarterback that's going to be tough, that's going to have the talent, and that's what you need. And so like when you look at Fields, he had that. He won in college and he had that moxie, and that's what we've kind of needed. So you kind of go into last year, was just really a lost season with the coaching, and them just not knowing what to do with him, and really just him also trying to figure things out. And so you go into this year, and had a chance to see him at training camp, and everybody looks good at training camp, right? And so,
Mhm.
but I liked just the things that he was saying, things he was doing, um, and so what he's shown obviously is that he can make big plays. I mean, he showed that a little bit last year, and he continues to show that. And obviously, he's added this. You know, he's gonna run. And I was at that Dolphins game, and just crazy to realize that he set a record, right? So he has
Yeah.
that playmaking ability. He's got when things are gonna break down. He has that. He can do that, and that's what you want. Your best player. You want your best player to be able to, if things break down, you
Yeah.
want them to be able to do something. He can do that with his legs.
Mhm.
And so so there's a lot of hope there when you have him at full strength that he can do that. And so I like everything that's with that. Now, is it possible that he's a bust? I don't think it's now at this point. I don't think it's possible that he's a bust. I think you can't say he's going to be a bust. I think it is possible that maybe he is only an average quarterback, right? So that's out there.
Okay.
Obviously, as a Bears fan, I hope he's going to be the next great Bears quarterback.
Right.
So there's a few different things to say. Obviously, they're Packer fans are saying he's trash, right? And I'm definitely interested to hear kind of your thoughts on that. Um, does he have a lot to work on and grow on? Absolutely.
Sure.
And a lot of it's on throwing, right? And a lot of it's on decision making and all that. But that's what I mean. A young quarterback that's what a young quarterback is doing. And obviously, the Bears have a lot of talent to kind of continue to surround him with. But what he's done with what they have so far, I think sky is a limit with that. Yeah, he definitely has a lot to grow with, and also with the coaching staff as well. But I'm excited.
Mhm. And you want your stars to be difference makers.
Hmm.
Like, there's something special about, like, you don't know what they're gonna do. Like, I remember, like, Clay, Matthews. It's like, I loved having him because, like, at any point in the game, he could change it, and I think that's where Justin Fields gets me excited as just an NFL fan, and gets me worried, like, when we play you guys, I'm like, "I don't know what's gonna happen with Justin Fields here," and that's what you want to have a rivalry and excitement. So I'm pretty pumped about that. And I feel like his floor is lower than it has risen, and but his ceiling, like he kind of reminds me of a Lamar Jackson. Now, like when I say that, I know that I'm going to get a lot of pushback, but I'm like, Lamar wasn't accurate. And he
Hmm.
was a human highlight reel. He was like the Michael Vick kind of way. Michael Vick wasn't the most accurate quarterback either, right? So
Hmm.
I don't know. Do you feel like there's a bit of is that a fair comparison, or am I kind of out to? I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but he's got potential. It as Lamar started slow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comparison. I mean, that is the running quarterback. I mean, and that's the knock on one of the knocks on him as well, that people say, well, you can't do this forever. You can't run, and Lamar, he's gotten injured too. But these quarterbacks, it takes time to kind of figure out, and, getting talent around them. So yeah, I think those are definitely fair comparisons. And when you look at him and his development, yeah, I think, and he talked about this, I think maybe even last year, that well, basically, the game slowing down for him, right? And slowing down to, okay, if he's on the run, and he's going to, basically shift a throwing window, and be able to hit in the throwing window. And last year, he was not able to, and maybe even early on in the season, he wasn't. Throwing guys open, or he wasn't, hitting open guys in some of those things. And a lot of that's learning. And, you know, as NFL fans, we want our team to win and succeed, but that takes time. And as a Bears fan that has seen the front office do a lot of bad things for a long time, now we have a good kind of football guys in general manager and
Mhm.
assistant general in that front office, starting to build around him. There's a lot of promise, and there's also a lot of promise with how they can develop him. right? You
Mhm.
know, I've just like even starting with that Dolphins game, first game of Claypool, um, just some of the different things that they were doing, running Cole Kmet, not traditional things, and all these different things can I think open things up for Justin Fields, open up, get him more confident, and
Mhm.
just also, disguise things, for the defense not to be able to recognize. But the biggest thing I think is just putting Justin Fields in the right position to succeed, and you want to have the right coaching staff, the right organization to do that. And I think we're heading in that direction. So, and as a Bears fan, I may be a little bit slanted toward the positive because I have to be, right. And I think as a fan, you have to be. But you look at what he's done, and he's already proven that he can be that playmaker, and that's at least what you want to start with.
Mhm. Mhm. So you had mentioned that Packers fans say that Justin Fields is trash. My question is, why do you think Packers fans hate Justin Fields so much?
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's the Bears, right? And I think, no one wants their rival to have a talented, player, and so like I think that's a big part of it. And so you kind of look at, oh well, he's lacking this and this and this, and that's why it was comical to me then on Twitter. And I think we talked about this. Everyone was all excited about Jordan Love. He's going to be the third in a row Hall of Fame quarterback for the Packers now after a half of or a few drives, and yeah, I mean he's showed a lot of good things. Part of that could have been the receivers as well, and I tell you what, I'm more afraid now of Watson and maybe when Dobbs comes back, so those are some good pieces. We'll see about Jordan Love because that's the thing. If you're gonna after a half, say Jordan Love's the next Hall of Fame Packers quarterback, and you're saying that, and then you're also saying Fields is trash. Come on, that should be on that ESPN. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Really like yeah, listen to yourself. If so, I appreciate some of the Packer fans that they're like, okay, well, um, we liked what Jordan Love did, but let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Right. And here's the thing too is like we don't we're so biased that we don't look at everything. Like for example, if Justin Fields had the wide receivers that or the O line
Hmm.
that Green Bay does, it's a different story here. And now, do I think Jordan Love is better, more accurate? Most likely, but we still haven't seen enough.
Hmm.
So I don't understand the hatred for Justin Fields and the love for Love, and especially how Love has struggled and struggled and struggled. We're talking two drives that were excellent against the Eagles, which is a top end team in the NFL. I get it, but it's 9 passes. And so I just
It,
feel it's unfair.
and was that
Um,
after uh, Gardner Johnson went out too?
yeah, I mean, I can't even remember, but it probably was. And that's the reality, right? Like you have Mooney and you've been really like people have been high on him and he just hasn't panned out. Like
Mm-mm.
people people can't even name some of your O linemen. Like that's what like it's been bad, right? And it's
Hmm.
not that so I want to give before I'm not going to rule out that Justin Fields is trash at this stage. And I know, hey, I want we've got rivalry going on. I'm okay with that. But like, I don't know. I just think it's not really fair and it's not really kosher to do something like that. But I don't know. That's just me. So I don't understand. I guess the comparison to me, and this is my best guess, is that they're both young, and
Hmm.
that's why we're comparing them a lot. But like Jordan Love is not even a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's like one day. Who knows if it's going to be this year, next year, the year after. So there's a lot of like Justin Fields is getting reps in live games, and
That's
so
huge. Well,
yeah.
you want to talk about fandom in the off season. Before week one, there was the fan, a Minnesota Viking fan, who said Kellen Mond was better than both Jordan Love and Justin Fields. And so that's fandom right there. That's just like
Totally.
blind fandom. And it's just like, no, if you're honest about players' talent, I mean, Jordan Love definitely has potential there. And, now that he's got some top receivers, so there's definitely a possibility that he can be good. Now that'll be interesting to see whether the Packers kind of allow that. I mean, you just have an interesting kind of dynamic with what happens with Rodgers, and just kind of like it's starting to become a toxic relationship. I even wonder, like, you look at, I think we talked about this week on the podcast about just that that contract that basically that's it's going to be hard to trade him, and so it's kind of like Packers give him what he wants. Here's what you want. All right. Oh, you lost Devontae Adams. Okay, do it. And it's almost like kind of gives them more of a path to get out of the, relationship. Then, if it had happened before this past season, then the Packers, obviously leaders would have been, fans would have been mad. Well, why'd you break up a good thing if Jordan Love completely stunk? And so now it's like, if they move on from Rodgers in some way from this year, after this year, okay, well, we weren't the number one seed, right? So we're further away than we thought. So it would be a little bit different. There's almost more, I feel like, an opportunity after this season to move on. Who knows if they will? But you look at it, there's just kind of a more reason to.
Right. And I'm convinced that Rodgers will be the starting quarterback next year, but I'm not closed the possibility that we could trade him in the offseason. But I mean, it's wild. I mean, I kind of hope it happens just because there's just so much to talk about. But I, as a Packers fan, and he's my favorite player of all time, I don't want to see him in another uniform. So, yeah. So, okay. So let's get into this big, huge, exciting matchup that they've boosted us to Sunday night. Oh, wait a minute. They didn't do that. Normally, we get a lot of press on our games, but it looks like it's not going to be as exciting as in years past or weeks past, I should even say. But what do you think the keys to the game will be for the Bears to win and for the Packers to win?
Well, let's just let's start with the Packers win, because I think it's going to happen. And the Bears, secondary is just so depleted. Everybody's pretty much went down. Eddie Jackson went down. We'll see if Brisker is going to play again. This week. We'll see if. Let me just check here. Well, Jalen Johnson's probably
walking wounded here.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see if Kyler Gordon plays. So it's gonna be there's gonna be a lot of opportunities, and I really think it sounds like Rodgers is gonna play, and I think he wants to play. I think this is his game, his team to beat. And I think he's going to really exploit that defense. And this really looks like it could be a Christian Watson game again, another touchdown. But this really it just feels like a Randall Cobb game to me, right? Like, let's get the band back together for one last, butt whooping of the Bears, right? And especially you look at I just don't trust that offensive line. It's just been a mess. Sam Mustipher, Whitehair. It's just been a mess, right? And so I think that's going to be part of it. I think in the passing game is going to be huge. If the Bears can force them into being, I can't talk myself into that, because like I was gonna say, if they could force them into one dimensional, but like I don't think the Bears can stop the run either. So
Right.
I think Packers are going to have a big game on the ground as well. I mean, we've watched countless backs have good games against the Bears, and so on that side of the ball, I just don't see the Bears being able to stop Packers. On the offensive side of the ball, obviously for the Bears, Montgomery is going to be huge, and that running game. And like I said before, kind of getting, um, you know, Velus Jones Jr. and even getting Cole Kmet, getting some of these players in
Mhm.
just some different running looks and just trying to get creative. I think that'll be important. But yeah, it's hard for me to really make a case for
Right.
the Bears to win this game other than it's at Soldier Field. And that's the only case I could make,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right on that. And but knowing how the NFL goes, and next thing you know, it's closer than we want it, but to be okay. So let's talk about what's your biggest surprise for the Bears and Packers this season. Because honestly, for us, there's been a lot of surprises, but I'd love to hear your take on the Bears. What's been the biggest surprise, and then also for the Packers, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, obviously, Justin Fields, just what he's done on the ground, that was a pleasant surprise. And now that he's hurt, I mean, we'll kind of see where that goes. But another pleasant surprise was the trade for Claypool. Now, it hasn't really amounted to much yet,
Right.
but it was kind of that excitement. We've got that possibility there of another wide receiver. So that's, I mean, as they get him involved, I think and acclimated the next, probably into even, next year. I think that'll be good. But the other one on offense, Cole Kmet. I mean, that was even the first few games of the season. It was just like, oh, he's a bust, But as soon as they brought in Claypool, they started to be a little bit more creative with him, and I think that's a pleasant surprise. And so that's the hope that he's going to be a big one of the a better tight ends. And so that's been a surprise as well. Hopefully that he can be, for Justin Fields, that security blanket going forward. So I think that'll be huge. On the defensive side of the ball, Brisker having a good season. Kyler Gordon was doing all right. Dominic Robinson, on defensive end, has been, a late round draft pick, has been, really pleasant surprise for the Bears as well. I like what he's doing. My favorite one though, and it's interesting because he's from Wisconsin, and we talked about it on Cut Day. We talked about it on the podcast. Jack Sanborn out of Wisconsin, and we talked about just him, be able to make one of the last roster spots, and now. Now that they traded away, what's his name? I'm just going to forget his name. Jack Sanborn, his really he's stepped. What's that?
Roquan Smith.
I don't even recognize that name.
Guy normally on our team.
Yeah. But Jack Sanborn has really played his way into hopefully starting spot, and I'm not ready to say next great linebacker, but he's really he's all over the field, and he's got that kind of passion that you want from a linebacker. So that's been a surprise that way. I can't say the wins and losses have been a surprise for the Bears, because I was saying all along they weren't going to win very many games, and I'm okay with that. For the Packers, I'd have to say, because I didn't think they were going to win very many games, but I obviously is surprised that they haven't won this many, that they're this bad at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to say that Watson's a surprise to me, though.
Well, I mean, he's been really good,
and that's just been lately, right?
Yeah.
And so the surprise is, because we talked about this before the season, that who knows about these wide receivers, and even with Devontae Adams, it took 3 years to develop, and so he is really I mean, becoming obviously that number one guy, and so that's been a surprise to me. I didn't know much about Dobbs either, so when you look at the wide receivers, there's a lot of hope there and a lot of promise, and so obviously those are the things that I would say that are surprises, and there's a lot of hope there. I mean, obviously the big question is the quarterback looming over you as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For me, the biggest surprise for the Bears was the whole Roquan Smith actually getting traded. I did not see that once he signed. Or no, did he sign? Yeah.
No, and that was the big thing. So like I remember even going to training camp and I was right there where he was signing and taking pictures with everyone. I have a picture right next to him and he was in street clothes then. Like he was not even, and that was the thing, he was holding in, right? And so that
Yes.
was,
Yes.
I did think the Bears were going to sign him.
Of course.
But looking at it, like he just wanted way too much money, number one, and number two is trying to do it all himself, which it's hard not to take the emotion out of it, right? And so it's hard to really allocate that much money to a player. When we're at the Bears, with the Bears, we are rebuilding, right?
Right.
And
Right.
there's so many other needs. So I can understand, obviously outsider, you're like, oh, he's one of the best linebackers, and that's a premium position. Sign him, but it's tough to put that much money,
Right.
especially for this new regime.
Yeah. And then I think for the Packers, my biggest surprise has been how we've been not good on all three facets of the game. I did not see. I knew that we were going to struggle at the beginning offensively just because with all the wide receivers that we had or didn't have or whatever. But I didn't think our running game was going to struggle. I did not think Aaron Rodgers was going to struggle like he is. But then defensively, we've been horrific some games. That's been very surprising because we were supposed to be a dominating defense. And then the other thing was on special teams that I actually think we lost a number of games because Amari Rodgers had the fumbling issues, and it was good that they let him go. So these, like, to me, I was on your podcast and you asked me like what the division winners are going, and you were saying Minnesota, and I'm saying, I think Minnesota's going to be second, Green Bay is going to be first, and obviously you're right about that, and I'm wrong, but that was like I didn't see that coming, that we were going to fall off like we have, and the season has not gone anything that I thought we would. Especially coming off such a great, like you and I both predicted the Packers to win last year. So, like, how's the Rams that bad? How are the Packers that bad? So, I think that's how I would answer that question.
Do you think the Packers would be different if the line would have been more solidified?
Well, no, I don't, because the defense has been that bad. Right. And so it's just one part of this massive failure for what we're supposed to be doing. Like, how do you lose to the Lions, and how do you lose to, like, you just start naming teams like I thought we were going to go on a 4-game winning streak, Giants, Jets, Commanders, and I think Lions was the other one. I can't remember what the other one was, but it's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, we went 5 games in a row losing. And I'm like, we could lose 8. I've never thought that in years and years and years, So I think that's where it's been tough for me personally. So, okay, so big battle. Looks like Justin Fields isn't going to be playing, but I hope he does, because it'll make the game way more exciting. Looks like Rodgers is going to be playing, which part of me hopes that he doesn't. So it'd be Love, and we're mathematically basically very close to being out. But I love watching Rodgers. So that's going to be, what do you think the final score will be? And we'll hold each other to it. And I don't know.
I'm going to stick with the same score I said on my pod, the 35-14 Packers. I mean, last thing I want to see is, Packers win again in Chicago. But I think it just, with everything, it's just going to be a struggle for the Bears to score any points. And this might be, you talk about the defense, this might be a get right game for the Packers defense.
Yep.
There might be a touchdown, on defense here, whether it's a strip, fumble, sack, or interception return. I see that happening, especially if you have a backup quarterback. How weird would that be if Tim Boyle gets a chance to play versus the Packers, right? I mean, it's just
wild to even think about.
Yeah, I was looking at I was looking at even his college stats at UConn. You know how bad they were, and yet he's still kicking around the NFL. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so
I think you're right. I think there's going to be a bounce back for the defense. They're under a lot of pressure right now. I think the Bears scored 10 points if Fields doesn't play. I think if Fields plays, it's a whole different story.
absolutely.
They could be scoring 21. I'll say 28-10, thinking that Justin Fields is not playing. So,
So
well,
we're both thinking the Packers are going to win then,
yeah,
right? Yep.
I think most of the people will predict. It's just like on Sunday Night Football. I was watching. Everybody picked the Eagles.
Yeah.
Everyone. It wasn't not one. I was like, and I had taken a screenshot and I was going to post it later when we won. And then I was like, I wasn't anticipating we were going to get run on that bad, and I didn't think they were going to score 40 points against us. But I also didn't think we were going to score 33. So that was a wild, crazy game. So, anyways, anything can happen. That's why it's any given Sunday.
Mhm.
And you got to tune in to see what's going to happen. I know our division's got some big games coming up as well, but we don't care about that right now. We only care about the Packers and Bears. And so thanks so much, Andy, for being on the show. And where can people find you?
Yeah, everyone can find me at NFL Outdated on Twitter and YouTube, and bear down.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for stopping by. If you've lasted this long, you deserve a badge. And I hope that you found it as interesting as I did. Really enjoyed having you, Andy, on. And I hope you have a great weekend. And of course, go Pack Go.
You too. Thanks again.